Hello, everybody. It is the Dark Conservatarian, and you are listening to a Strike Force debate. I am your host and moderator, the Dark Conservatarian. As I just stated, I'm such a noob. But anyway, yes. So, for quite a while now, CultofHam and BTK have been going back and forth on guns. It started with a Humane Mind stream on talking about gun control, and in the chats, they just been going right at it with each other on guns. And so I thought, hey, why not have it on a live stream? It would be a little bit more efficient so that people can actually like listen to the full arguments flushed out, listen to it while at work or doing chores or whatever else have you, instead of having to like tediously read through endless amounts of chat that would probably not be viewed by most other people. But yes, so the subject is guns, gun rights, gun control, gun statistics, possibly race and crime being tied into that, and who knows whatever else. Actually, we're going to try to keep this on the rails on guns. Like if there's any other subjects that are going to be bring up, it better be well tied in with the issue of guns and guns in America primarily. But yes, so to explain the format of this, the debate format is going to be that each debater will get a 5-minute opening statement, and then each debater will have like a 2-minute response statement after each, well, after both people have opened up their 5-minute opening statement, with no interruptions in the least bit for that segment. From there, we'll move to 30 to 40 minutes of cross examination, where I'll be a little bit more lenient on the interjections, but there will be no complete cutoffs. And after that, we'll go to 30 to possibly 60 minutes of addressing the chat. I mean, it depends on how many questions and statements and arguments and so on are brought up in the chat. But before that, we will not address the chat at all. So, and it'll be the same rule as last. Interjections, I'll be lenient on, but no complete cutoffs and interruptions. But then after we are done with that, the maximum of 60 minutes of addressing the chat, or when we feel like we're done with the chat, we'll go to 5-minute ending statement, and we'll end the debate from right there. And there will be no insults or personal attacks in this debate right here. I'm going to try to keep it as civil as possible. And if people insist on being angry and insulting and interrupting, I am going to most likely mute them. So, anyway, who wants to go first?
She can go first.
All right, I guess BTK will go first because Ham is a little busy eating his dinner. But anyway, so
Steak, bitches, top sirloin.
yes. So anyway, I'm going to actually get out my timer on my phone because on my watch I'll probably not notice it as well. All right, timer. I probably should have set this up far ahead of time, but it's that quick. All right, so BTK, you ready?
Sure.
All right, your timer is starting now.
All right. Opening statements. Let's see here. My main argument, I guess, is that the gun control is unconstitutional, and it's. I don't really have much for an opening statement. Gun control is unconstitutional. There shouldn't be gun control. The purpose of the United States government is not to protect the individual; it's to protect the populace as a whole. Therefore, any gun related statistics that skew the numbers in regards to suicide, I view as completely irrelevant because there's, 30,000 gun deaths. And if you take out suicide and accidental discharges, that drops down to, I think it's 16,000. If you look at mass shootings in the country, the statistics on those are skewed very, very poorly. You could even say that the United States has the safest mass shootings in the world because in half of our mass shootings, nobody died. And in a couple dozen of the quote unquote mass shootings, it was a BB gun that was used. So, I mean, if you take out suicide, you take out accidental discharge, and you take out any mass shooting that nobody died in, all the numbers become very apparent that we don't really have a gun problem. I'd say that the problem we have is a violence problem and a mental health problem, and removing guns doesn't solve either one of those. It just makes it less visible. But a problem that's less visible is no less of a problem. So that's all I really have for an opening.
Wait, really? Oh man, you still got like 2 minutes and 45 seconds left.
Well, I'm quick, short, and to the point.
All right. Well, then that's fine, I guess. You sure you don't want to use your last 2 minutes?
I don't know what I'd use them on.
All right. So I guess we'll just get down to brass tacks. All right. Ham, you ready for your opening statement?
Sure.
All right. 5 minutes, go.
I don't really have an opening statement prepared, but when it comes to gun control and gun violence in America, America is unique among industrialized nations in how violent we are when it comes to guns. If you look on Wikipedia, list of countries by firearm related death, we're like we're close to the top. Only African and South American nations are worse than us when it comes to gun violence, homicides, suicides, unintentional, undetermined, or in total. Harvard came out with a meta study where they determined that firearms are a causal factor in homicides and various forms of violent crime. And gun control very much is illegal on a constitutional basis because no right is absolute. There are limits to even the freedom of speech, of which I agree with. And even if you look at the direct text of the Second Amendment, none of us are in a militia. So none of us technically have the right to bear arms. Another thing, responding to a thing that BTK said a while ago about how, the black community was primarily responsible for getting the drug war put into place. I got some quotes from Harry J. Anslinger where he says frankly of his opinions on non-white minorities and drugs. Like marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. Reefer makes darkies think that they're good as white men. You smoke a joint and you're likely to kill your brother. Marijuana leads to pacifism and communist brainwashing. I also have a article from Forbes on Nixon's drug war about and a quote from a top advisor to President Nixon about the drug war. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, anti-war left and the black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. Quote goes on, but essentially it confirms that yes, the drug war is primarily a tool to attack political dissidents and minority communities, as it always was. And responding to another thing, BTK, said last week and right now, mass shootings, America having the safest mass shootings in the world.
1
Just,
minute.
just imagine the contradiction, the oxymoron in that statement. There's no such thing as a safe mass shooting. In fact, 10,656 people since the Sandy Hook shooting died in mass shootings. So I do not consider that a safe mass shooting. And I concede the rest of my time.
All right. So you had 30 seconds left on that time. All right. So canceling that. We shall move on to BTK. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. 2 minutes. Start now.
I'd like to address, since he spent most of his time on the drug war, I'd like to address that first, get that out of the way. Here's a quote from Dr. Robert DuPont, one of the founders of a study citing rumors from the late 1960s. This was during a PBS interview. It says it was robbing. It was the narcotic, the opiate of the masses, given out by the government for political purposes to make docile the revolutionaries who were otherwise going to free themselves and change society. That's the way people thought, that some people thought, and it was done for political purposes. I was an agent of Richard Nixon, and it was an anti-black, anti-poor movement. Now, from the same article, if I scroll down, this is from Representative Shirley Chisholm, who was a black congressional representative who ran for president in 1972. She said, most community groups agree that the first offense must be against black pushers and distributors who, as one father of a 19-year-old addict said, come brazenly into our neighborhoods and murder and cripple our children with that junk. The Black Congressional
30
Congress. Okay. There was a vote for a war on drugs in 1970, and out of the black members in the Black Congressional delegation, only 2 voted against it. All the others voted for it and demanded it.
All right. Is that it for you?
Mhm.
All right. With about 10 seconds to spare. And so, by the way, if you see me grinning or laughing a little bit, it's mostly because of what I'm seeing in the chat here. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have articles you want to show, do not be afraid to just go ahead and screen share them. Anyway, all right. Ham, you're up next. All right. So
Okay.
2 minutes start now.
Well, we can just. I don't see how BTK addressed a single thing I said. I gave you a quote from a top advisor in the Nixon administration, where the drug wars was designed to go after political dissidents and minority communities. He said it right there himself, and we see it in effect with how the drug war disproportionately affects minority communities, even to this day, where a white person is more likely to have drugs, but he's less likely to be busted by a cop for having drugs, and a white person is more likely to get off with a lighter sentence, and frankly, and and serve a shorter time. So I don't know what he was responding about, or what she was responding about. And I see that she hasn't responded to a single thing I said about the out of control mass shooting problem America has, since we're the worst in the Western liberal democracy world in terms of gun violence. In just homicides alone, we're
30 seconds.
4.62 homicides per 100,000 per year. That's that only war zones, get worse than that. And next.
All right. So you're done there, Ham?
Yeah.
All right. So this shall be the more entertaining part of the debate. He 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 he. Now it is time for the open-ended part of our discussion. Let me set up the timer here. All right. So 30 to 40 minutes of cross-examination. Like I said earlier, whoever wants to start off can go ahead and start right about now.
All right, I'll go first. I really want to get this whole drug thing knocked out, and then we can go on to the guns. 1971, March 25th, the Congressional Black Caucus had a closed door sit down with President Nixon, and they provided him with a manifesto with 6 demands. The three of the 6 demands were demanding the president to do more to fight drugs without waiting for congressional action. Um, they specific wording or quote is, "You do have the power, and we implore you to use it as you would if this were a national crisis." And I think we've reached that. Um, there were let's see here. Ah, crap. Where did it go?
You had it, then you lost it.
Yeah, January of 1970, 79, I think. New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller was uh, the NAACP demanded a meeting, and after he came out of the meeting, he said, "I have one goal and one objective, and that is to stop the pushing of drugs and to protect the innocent victim." Um, and his quote was, "Our young people are dying and they're being destroyed. And unless you back this bill, New York State is doomed, and not only the state of New York, but all the other states who are watching what New York is doing." So the Black Congressional Congress demanded Nixon to start a war on drugs. The NAACP was going to governors and demanding they start a war on drugs. There was a stand-in of uh, uh, black community leaders, church leaders, pastors, um, uh, city board members, etc. Which I mean, back in that time, there wasn't very many black city board members because America's racist. But there was a huge stand-in, sit-in, march-in all across the nation um, of all these people from the black community coming out and demanding our federal government stop the drugs and enforce stronger drug penalties in the black communities because their kids were dying of overdoses, their kids were being shot for drugs, and they were tired of it. You can go ham.
Well, I'll just respond back to what I said earlier. The top advisor to the Nixon administration admitted that the drug war was used primarily to attack hippies and minority communities, because you can't legislate not being against the war and you can't legislate away being against the war and being black. You got to be a bit more subtle. So you ban weed, you ban coke, you ban heroin, and you essentially make certain classes of people illegal, like hippies.
Okay.
And not to mention the man who started it all, the man responsible for the majority of drug legislation around the world, Harry J. Anslinger, was a vicious fucking racist.
Okay, this is a little bit past Nixon, but in 1982 February, the Congressional Black Caucus released a manifesto or a document titled "Black Leadership Family Plan for the Unity, Survival, and Progress of Black People." The document was penned by civil rights icon Walter Fauntry, who was a black guy. Um, I think he was black anyway, if I remember correct. And they were upset that Washington D.C.'s non-voting or non-votes towards increasing the penalties for drugs, drug use, drug ownership, drug sales, etc., was further destroying their communities. And it said incidents of crime in Black communities is increasing because of the intentional and unintentional failure on the part of law enforcement agencies to provide adequate protection. And the plan included in the statement they released urged police to increase drug enforcement measures and include community sources of information and cooperation. So if you look at the big picture, I mean, yeah, sure, part of it by some of the people was there were racist tool bags and they didn't like Black people and didn't like hippies. But that doesn't outweigh the fact that the Black community leaders of the time were going to Congress and going to the president and going to the governors and going to the mayors and demanding the drug problem be heavily um, policed.
Okay, you have some Black community leaders going to Congress. That doesn't change the fact that the drug war is primarily targeted at minorities and targeted at political dissidents, as once again stated by the Nixon administration itself, and by the results that we see. You know, blacks are disproportionately more likely to be busted over, drug possession, even though they're less likely to even possess drugs than white people.
Well,
I just want to interject with the question here. We're all against the drug war here, right? Just yes or no?
Oh, well, you got to be against the drug war.
Oh, okay, yeah. Obviously, Ham is, but BTK.
The only way I would say that I'm against the drug war would be if we were to legalize all drugs, and it's gonna sound a bit messed up. Legalize all drugs, and if you overdose, you die. We don't care. You made the choice to take the drugs. It's on you.
Okay, so it looks like an overall yes. So continue.
And by the way, I do believe 100% all drugs need to be legalized, taxed, and regulated.
Well, I'm not big on tax, but
why, you're some kind of ANCAP?
I wouldn't go that far. Okay. I like it in principle, but it doesn't really work once you try to implement it.
Okay, so let's keep this debate on the rails, just FYI. Guns and the tie-in subjects of it.
All right. So
yeah, let's actually talk about drugs. I mean, let's actually talk about guns.
All right. Let's see here. So, let's see here. In 2014, there were 33,594 people who died in gun-related deaths. 21,386 of them were suicides. So we can take those and just completely dismiss them.
No. No, absolutely not.
The United States.
When it comes
whoa, Ham. Okay, continue, BTK.
Okay, I'll explain why. The purpose of government is not to protect the individual from the individual. DUI laws are not there to prevent a drunk driver from killing themselves. They're there to prevent a drunk driver from killing a family. Laws that are there for protection are not there for protection of the individual. So if you buy a gun and you kill yourself with it, that it's not the government's responsibility to have prevented that.
But it can be prevented. If you look at the various methods of committing suicide, firearms are by far the most successful at committing a successful suicide. It's like in the 90%. When you go to like knives and poisons, they're like less than 10% successful. So yeah, if you want to prevent suicides, you would want to ban guns, because guns are, according to the data, the most successful and easiest way to commit suicide. All you got to do is aim it at yourself and pull a trigger. With poison, you gotta know, what kind of poison, how much will kill you, and do
Yeah,
you really
I
want to
see your
suffer the consequences?
I see your argument, and it's valid. Um, but I'm not really interested in preventing suicide. Um,
Well, then you're a
not
sociopath.
hang on, not at the expense of invalidating other people's rights to own firearms.
All right, so I want to interject with another question here. Does everyone here believe that suicide is a person's own personal right, own personal liberty?
I believe it's your personal. If you, yeah, I do.
Well,
Ham?
here's the thing. When it comes to suicide, yeah, at the end of the day, it's your own damn fault for pulling the trigger. But there are ways that we can help prevent suicides by, one of the ways we can do is make one of the easiest ways of committing suicide a little bit harder.
Well, right, I understand the logic too, but my question is, do you believe that it is a right, or at least it should be considered a right for a person to like kill themselves?
If you don't have a right to kill yourself, then you're a slave.
But okay,
You
answers
have the
that.
right
So
to your
yes,
own
then.
bodily autonomy.
All right.
Okay, so back to what I was saying. 2014, I already said how many suicides there were, how many total deaths there were. There were 11,008 homicides, um, of which 14 were mass shootings. Um, and that doesn't include, or that 11,008 includes accidental deaths and war casualties. So I mean the numbers are kind of skewed right there. I don't remember offhand how many people died in 2014 that were American citizens in war. Um, 2014, if I were to guess, I'd say it's probably around 380, 390 in that year. So it doesn't really skew the numbers that much. Um, Worst mass shootings in the U.S. since 1991. Ham, you threw out Sandy Hook earlier. That was 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 21 children got shot and killed.
Yeah, 27 people died total. 21 kids. The the shooter died in that one, didn't he?
Sure.
Yeah.
And
So
his mother,
yeah.
whom, by the way, was trying to get this guy. Uh, he was trying to this guy locked up in a mental institution because he was a fucking nutcase. She was getting fought, tooth and nail, and ended up dying.
That doesn't. Okay, that sounds like that's a failure on the mental health institutions and policies, not on gun control. Because in most states, if you're okay, I don't think that our gun laws are. We have over 1,000 gun laws on the books already. If we were to enforce the gun laws we already have, we wouldn't have mass shootings. Except for like one, the occasional person that has no history of mental health that snaps and just shoots people, like happened in Vegas. Like that guy legitimately had, as far as I've been able to find in my research, no history of mental health disorders. All of his guns were legally owned, so that one wouldn't have been able to have been prevented. But if you look at the Orlando shooting, the Virginia Tech shooting, the Sutherland Springs shooting, the Parkland shooting, the Killeen, Texas shooting, the San Bernardino shootings, the Fort Hood shooting on the base there, and even Columbine, all the big shootings. I just listed, I think, all the big household name ones. All but one of them, which is the Las Vegas shooting, could have been prevented by enforcement of the laws we already have.
All right, Ham, respond.
Some of them could be, but From what I'm aware of, there is no mental health check in in the background checks when you ever do purchase a firearm. Not to mention, there is no background check at all when it comes to private purchases.
Okay, the
So, so
I
you,
can
you
agree. I can agree with you on the point that you're about to make that they're not being mental health background checks. And sorry to cut you off,
All
but
right, yeah.
I knew
Let
where
Ham
you were
finish.
going.
Let Ham
Um,
finish.
okay.
Ham.
uh, I've no idea what.
Like I
What
said,
you
and
listening?
I knew where he was going with it. He was going to say that the privately owned sales there's well he did say privately owned sales there's no mental health checks, and that's a hole a big hole in the system. That was the point you were going with, right, Ham?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Even privately owned sales, passing firearms from father to son, son to daughter, daughter to brother, et cetera, they need to be held to the same standard as a commercial firearm sale. Um, all transfers should be done through an FFL with a background check. Um, as far as your point in regards to no mental health checks, um, in the background process of buying firearms, I don't, I don't know. That might be state dependent. I know the state I'm in, if you've had a mental health appointment, seen a psychiatrist, etc., in the last well, if you've been in a psych ward in the last 7 years, you can't have a gun. Period. If you've seen a mental health provider in the last 2 years, you are supposed to list it, and um, the professional that you saw is supposed to be contacted in the process of determining whether or not you're eligible to get a firearm. And if they say no, then you're declined. But like I said, I'm pretty sure that's a state law. Um, I could advocate for that being a national. Uh, Basically, I'm anti-gun laws um, unless it's a mental health check um, or a if you have a felony on your record for spousal abuse or child abuse or anything like that, any violent charges, then I can probably agree with Ham that you shouldn't be authorized to get a firearm. But those laws are already on the books. We just need to enforce them.
Uh, sure. So maybe enforcement is a bit is a problem, but I'm not all that read up on how enforced these laws are or how they failed. Uh, if I remember specifically, Jared Loeffner, the guy who shot Gabby Giffords and 6 other people,
Yeah.
or yeah, he was denied like twice at a gun shop from buying a gun before he finally found a disgusting enough gun shop that would finally sell him a gun. I mean, well, why wasn't there some sort of uh, you know why weren't the police notified that hey, this guy's on the loony bin and he's looking to buy a gun? Uh,
Um. So you think that people that can't pass a background check if they put themselves in a situation where a background check would be ran, i.e., they attempt to purchase a firearm, then they should be put on, say, like a watch list.
there has to be some kind of notification.
So, like, if I were to go, if I got out of a psych ward, hypothetical here, got out of a psych ward 2 months ago, and I started trying to go buy guns, and I was filling out all the background check information, then not only should it be denied, and in my state it would be denied, but um, the I don't know, ATF or whatever organization would be put in charge of that should be notified so as to, I don't want to say spy on me, but to put out like I don't know, like a system where they just put out to all
So it's some sort of
FFL.
red flag. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that all FFL holders in my state or nationally, it just adds my name to a database, so that they don't even have to run a background check, and I just give them my name, and they go, yeah, sorry, we can't sell.
No, I'm talking about if you fail the background check, you the police are given like a red flag and some, and if you keep trying to buy a gun or something else, like what this Jared Loeffner did, the police should come knocking on your door.
So being on a list to where you can't,
What list are you talking about?
There would have to be a list. I'm not talking about a list that currently exists, but it'd have to be a list. You fail your background check, your name gets added to a list. That way, they can see that you're attempting to buy the firearms, and then if you repeatedly do so, they basically would you support a law that would basically state, if you are not eligible to buy a firearm, but you continuously try to buy a firearm, it's a chargeable offense.
Attempted murder is a thing, so yeah.
Not entirely sure that would fall under attempted murder, because you can't really state.
Well, wait, if you attempt to buy a gun and you're denied, and being eligible to fail a background check, you would know you would fail a background check beforehand. Whether or not you committed a felony or you had a visit of a psych ward or anything like that. Yeah, you would know you would fail a background check. So the fact that you would...
Wait,
yeah, hang on, I gotta fix my Bluetooth.
BTK, I don't know if you're doing something in the background there. You're trying to speak and your mic is not working or what, but we're just hearing a whole bunch of whistling or something. Like fix your audio problems. Anyway, sorry, CultofHam, go ahead. Whatever he was trying to say. Oh, guess she needs to rejoin. Go on. Or I guess we'll wait for BTK. I don't know.
Well, I guess I'll share this this Vox article I have on the gun problem in America. But
okay.
By the way, I want to clarify my position on guns. I'm a gun owner. I love shooting my guns. I own 4 of them. I plan to own more of them. But I do accept the reality that merely being in the presence of a gun puts me at a greater risk for harm or injury than if I had no guns.
Can you expand on that, or expand on that, please? Like what you mean?
What do I mean by what?
By merely being in the presence of a gun, being a gun owner, etc., puts you at
Harvard came out with a meta study where they concluded that firearms are a causal factor in various forms of violent crime, like homicide.
So you're basically the argument of, if you have a gun, you're more likely to use it. You're more likely to escalate to a lethal measure than you would if you didn't have it.
Where there are more guns, there is more homicide. That's I don't know where the exact meta study is. But yeah,
What? What? Go ahead.
You know, I mean, if you look at if you compare America to many nations in Europe and around the world, Japan, South Korea, Argentina, Canada, Switzerland, Cyprus, they all have far fewer guns per capita than we do, and as a consequence, they have far fewer gun related deaths per 100,000.
Well, this brings us. Oh, go ahead.
Switzerland, I know, is like the second or third highest guns per capita in the world, and they have a third the homicide rate we do, if that much. Their homicide rate is ridiculously low, and that's primarily because they have an entirely different type of gun culture. Where we in the United States, we have a very individualistic frontier lifestyle when it comes to guns. When it comes to many of the gun owning nations in Europe, it's very much a very militaristic culture around guns, where you gotta treat it properly, and this is a tool of mass destruction.
Okay. You brought up other, or you brought up European and other countries that are, what's the word? First world, I guess.
There's countries like Argentina that are, and Barbados, and hell, even Slovenia. So many of these nations aren't. You wouldn't consider them first world nations. They're like second world nations. Eastern Europe.
What I was okay. They're also, and this is the point of contention where you declared me a racist last week. Those countries are also far more racially homogeneous than, or whatever the word is, than we are. Now, the reason I bring that up is, and I'm looking for them right now, so I can send them to Dark. If you look at a map of the United States's,
by the way, do you guys want me to share all these links that you guys are sharing to me in the Google Hangouts side chat here?
Sure.
Yeah, you can.
All right, then, because Ham shared a lot to me. Continue.
Yeah, there's a map, and I'm looking for it right now so I can send it to Humane, or not Humane, Dark. Sorry for the insult. And
Hey, yeah, I'm not the only one who hates Humane.
No, he's not bad.
He's awful.
BTK has been having some recent drama with him, but anyway.
Yeah, if you look at these maps when I eventually find them in my 10,000 pictures on my phone, the areas of the United States that are the most racially diverse, meaning the most the highest concentration of mixed ethnicities, and then you overlay that with a map of gun crime in the country, the areas with the highest gun crime overlay exactly in the areas with the highest ethnic diversity. And that's not racist. I'm not saying that it's black people or brown people being hated by white people and therefore being killed, or hating white people and therefore killing them. I'm just saying cultures sometimes clash. And
well, here's the thing: when you say go from culture to race, I'm fine with the statement that's saying if you have cultures clash, there's going to be more violent crime. When you say we have mixed races, I'm not okay with that, because you can have a hillbilly hick in the South who's whiter than the whitest snow, and he's a violent, drug using piece of shit. But you can have some, you can have some black guy who went to Harvard and lived in a gated community his entire life, and he's as safe a guy to hang around with as as anyone.
Right. It would be racist to look at a black person and say you're going to kill me or you're going to rob me or you're going to rape me. Uh, it'd be sexist to look at a man and say you're going to mug me and you're going to rape me and you're going to do this or that. You can't base it solely off of color. The statistics on crime in this country for murder, you can't just dismiss those either, though, because when you have 13% of the population, I think it's 15% now, meaning non-white people, we'll just say non-white people, blacks and black mixed, I believe is what the stats are responsible for 53% of the homicides in the country, committing 5 crimes for every 1 crime per capita. That's a problem. Now, is the problem because they're black? No. The problem is not because they're black. The problem is many things. You got their culture. You have the culture is really the big one. I'm sorry, I'm starting to ramble here because I'm trying to find these damn pictures.
BTK, answer me this: who's the primary victim? Who is more than likely to be the victim of a black person, in terms of homicide or any crime? Who's most like? What color is that victim most likely to be?
I know what you're getting at. I know what you're getting at. However, I counter that with, do you not care about black people? Because I do. So you can't just say, well, they're killing 90. You're saying 94. Okay, 94% of homicides committed by black people are of black people. That's a problem to me.
Yeah,
that means the biggest threat.
Hey, let's chill down with the over talk. All right, I'm going to give Ham some time to respond to that. BTK.
Yeah, you're completely you're not understanding the point I'm bringing. The point I'm bringing is this is a problem in the black community. Well, why does this problem in the black community exist? Well, we can look at things like the drug war. The drug war disproportionately affects minority communities. If we get rid of the drug war, you'd have so many black fathers who can attend to their kids, and so their kids don't grow up to be gangbangers and murderers and drug users. So I have a lot of disagreements with Sargon, but when he says one of the biggest problems in the black community is the breakdown of the family, I tend to have to agree with it. And some of it comes from my own personal experience. I was raised in a single parent household by my father. If I was raised by my mother, I know I would be fucked up, because just spending the limited amount of time with my mother during the divorce fucked me up for years. It still has me fucked up today. But my dad, for the most part, straightened me out. And not to mention my mother is like mentally unstable. She couldn't fucking raise me. So I'd be spending my entire life in a foster care. I'd be a fucking delinquent. I'd be just like one of the black gangbangers who get involved into a life of crime. So
Okay.
one of the reasons why I pulled up the drug war on this issue is it is an issue that disproportionately affects the black community, which is why they have so much a disproportionate amount of crime, and not to mention that they're all lower class, or tend to be of a lower class compared to most white people. I lived in a.
Ham, I'm going to give BTK some time.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so you can't say that black people are more likely to be arrested for having drugs than white people, even though white people are more likely to have drugs, and then turn around and say that the having drugs in the black community is one of the primary reasons why there's so much crime in the black community. If the reason why there's so much crime in the black community is because they have the drugs and they're killing each other over the drugs and doing all this other stuff over the drugs, then that kind of negates the whole argument of they don't have the drugs. That doesn't make sense. You can't have it both ways.
What the hell are you talking about?
Okay, so you said that black people are more likely to be arrested for having drugs than white people, even though white people are more likely to have drugs. Okay.
The white people don't get caught.
Well, maybe the black people should learn from the white people and hide them better, but it's neither here nor there.
Maybe the black people should learn to not be black. I mean, goddamn.
Learn to not be black. Well, that's pretty racist of you to say, but
yeah, as a parody of your own position.
No, that's not my position at all. And
okay. Let's get off with the snark here. I'm gonna slow it down a bit here.
All right. So what I was saying. Okay. If black fathers are going to jail because they have drugs, and black fathers are losing their sons because their sons are in gangs that primarily revolve around drugs, then the black community is the one that called for the drug war, and in nearly every state, I think even in California, when they were renewing their drug penalties and everything, the black communities were demanding harsher penalties for drugs because they were tired of drugs in their community. Okay, so
some blacks did. I mean, the drug war is primarily a tool used by racist white politicians to attack political dissidents and minority communities. We know this to be a fact.
That doesn't hold any weight when you look at the documents and read the reports and read the demands from the black community telling these racist white people we need strict drug enforcement in our communities.
And I gave you from the words of the Nixon administration what their thoughts of it were. It was specifically about attacking, the anti-war left and the black community.
Okay, but if your enemy comes to you, and this is in the context of the Nixon administration viewing black people as the enemy, okay, if your enemy comes to you and asks you to do for them what you would like to do to them anyway, it cancels out.
No, it doesn't.
What you're trying to do.
Ham, let BTK finish.
What you're trying to do might be considered racist, targeting the black people because of their drugs. But if they came to you and said, hey, we have this drug problem in our community, our sons are overdosing, our daughters are being shot in the street by drive-bys, please help us. You can't turn around and go, well, they're racist for doing what the people that came to them and asked them to do.
Have you never heard the phrase from Winston Churchill? Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
So your view is that the black community leaders, the pastors, and the Congressional Black Caucus, and all those people that came to the Nixon administration and came to the governors and came to the mayors and came to the police departments and demanded help with their own kids dying in the streets were making a mistake.
Yeah.
That's a hot take, but I'll go with it.
Yeah, how is it not a mistake? It's objectively a mistake. Well, the drug war for, you know, what is essentially, oh, I put a substance into my body that alters my consciousness a little bit. You know, you make that a punishable crime.
Well, hang on though. The black people weren't asking for it to be a crime for the sake of it being a crime. They were asking for it to be a crime because they were tired of their sons overdosing.
We got about 4 minutes of the cross-examination left here, so I would say let's get it to a pausing point at some point to address the chat. But continue.
They were overdosing because these drugs were unregulated.
What do you want them to be prescribed or something?
I want them to be regulated. That's what.
How are you going to manage that? It'd have to be prescribed from a pharmaceutical company to ensure that it's a certain quality.
The same way marijuana dealers, the same way marijuana stores and alcohol manufacturers are regulated. You're asking to solve a problem that's already been solved in a different type of drug. Tobacco, alcohol, they're all drugs. Marijuana is whenever they legalize it, it gets a hell of a lot safer.
So you support big government then?
The fuck you talking about big government?
That would require the government getting involved in every aspect, setting regulations, setting up penalties for violations of the regulations, setting up laws on how much you can buy, setting up penalties for having more than you could legally buy. Because if you have more than you could legally buy, then you just subverted the entire regulation process. Because if it's regulated to where you can only take X amount in one dose, and you and 3 of your buddies go in and they buy you a dose each because that's what you want.
You're going off some bizarre fucking tangent. We'll regulate them the same fucking way we regulate tobacco, the same fucking way we regulate alcohol.
Okay, there's not a single regulation on alcohol that prevents alcohol poisoning. So there wouldn't be a single regulation on these drugs that would prevent you from having an overdose.
But they are legally required to put how much alcohol is in their booze. They're required put like 40% of alcohol by volume. Cigarettes are required to list what goes in them.
But putting a label on something doesn't make the end user any safer. So you're going to have the same problem that the black communities were the same problem that the black communities went to the government to end. You're going to have people dying of the drugs because they're taking more than they're supposed to.
No, you won't, because guess what? Drugs like heroin, cocaine, marijuana were already illegal in the 1970s. Guess who made them illegal? Harry J. Anslinger in the 30s.
But you're arguing for them to be legal and be regulated. So you're arguing for somebody to be able to legally overdose. Whereas the people in the black communities were arguing for them to not only remain legal, but for stricter penalties for possession and use. Because they were tired of their problem wasn't that the drugs existed. They didn't care that the drugs were there. They wanted people to not use them because people were dying.
That's why we cut off the exchange here, but we have 30 seconds left on the cross-examination, and then I'll address the chat.
This is a bizarre fucking tangent that BTK is going on. Oh, BTK, are you for legalizing drugs or not?
I'm for legalizing drugs on the condition that if you overdose, it's on you. If we legalize narcotics, we should illegalize Narcan.
All right, so we'll pause it right there. And there's not a whole lot in the chat here to be addressed, honestly. The only thing that I saw worthy of addressing was a chat comment by the Crusader saying the reason why we have so many mass shooting, excuse me, let me restart. The reason why we have so many mass shootings is because we call 3 people getting injured as a mass shooting.
You're right, and there's if you look at the list on mass shootings, some of them, if you actually go in and you read the court or the cases, the police reports, it was a BB gun.
And
nobody,
how
nobody
many of
died.
those are there?
In 50% of all mass shootings in the United States in the last since 1983, nobody died.
How many of them were BBs? That's what I asked you.
There's at least 12 that I know of.
So 12. So these 12 shootings invalidate all the other mass shootings.
No, I'm saying those 12 shootings shouldn't be on the list.
These 12 shootings automatically make 21 children dying in a fucking schoolroom safe. How fucking bizarre is this?
You would have to legalize the possession of guns by the private citizen 100% in order to prevent that. And you've already stated you're not for that.
Or you get rid of the guns totally, as according to Harvard.
That's what I just said.
You said
if they're illegal for the common citizen to own, that means there wouldn't be any guns. And if there are guns, only criminals would have them.
Yeah, and they would get caught and be tossed in jail.
Yeah, they'd get caught after they shot up a school.
Or they get caught just carrying the fucking gun. Do you know how big and heavy and clunky an assault rifle is? It's anywhere from a 6 to 8 pound.
I was in the military for 8 years, deployed twice. Yes, I have an idea how heavy an assault rifle is, and I also am aware that a quote-unquote assault rifle is already illegal to own by the average citizen without a specialized permit and paying a specialized tax to own it.
Well, the effective use of the semi-auto AR-15s.
More people are killed by handguns in the United States every year.
BTK.
Sorry.
The effective use of AR-15s in mass shootings proves that they are fully deserving of the term assault rifle being applied to them.
Okay. More people are killed each year by pistols in the United States than quote-unquote assault rifles.
Non sequitur.
No,
I'm talking about mass shootings. You're talking about all shootings.
Even in more people are killed in mass shootings with a pistol. If you look at the what was that college in Pennsylvania?
Virginia Tech. I know what the hell you're talking about.
If you look at Virginia Tech, most of his kills were with
Ham. Let BTK finish.
Most of his kills were with a pistol. So
if you look at the Aurora shooting, most of the kills were done with an assault rifle. If you look at the Las Vegas shooting, most of the kills were done with assault rifles. You know, Sandy Hook. I can go on and on.
Okay, well, if we're going solely off of kills by assault rifles, there are 4 deaths for every kill by an assault rifle using a knife.
Well, why do you keep on going on these non-fucking sequiturs?
How is it non sequitur?
Yeah.
If you want to,
I'm talking about mass shootings. I'm talking about, hey, look at this ridiculous fucking crime, this out of control problem that we have, that no other fucking modern nation has. None whatsoever. You know, there's a very simple. We could do it at a very simple, blunt way of doing it, which I disagree with, and just banning all guns. Or we could do it, you know, in a more intelligent way and just require These guns require licensing and background checks, and certain types of guns like assault rifles, high-capacity pistols, high-capacity shotguns require, more strict licensing.
Okay. On just assault rifles, there are more people in the United States killed by knives than assault rifles.
Non sequitur.
The problem isn't the means of the killing. The problem is the killing. It's not the gun is just a tool, so it's not non sequitur. The problem is the mental health
Okay.
of the people in the country.
How much easier is it to kill 50 people with an assault rifle or a knife? Which one's a lot easier?
You've asked me this before, and I've answered this before. You give me you let me pick 3 knives and put me in a crowd of my choosing, and I will give you 50 bodies.
Okay, but would that been done easier with an assault rifle?
It doesn't matter whether it's easier or not.
Would it be done easier with an assault rifle?
If I kill you with
a knife.
Hey, wait. Ham, let BTK finish.
No, I want her to answer my question. Yes or no? Just yes or no.
If I kill you with a knife or I kill you with a gun, are you any less dead? Yes or no?
Is it easier to kill someone with? Is it easier to kill 50 people with an assault rifle or with a knife?
So we're at an impasse here because you're dead.
No, how about no? Okay. Let me answer the fucking question for you. Since you're so fucking dishonest and stupid, it's a lot easier to kill someone.
Hey! I said cut the personal attacks and insults at the beginning of this debate. For crying out loud!
It's a lot easier to kill 50 people with an assault rifle because all you got to do is sit there, is literally just fucking stand there, aim, pull the trigger 30 times, reload. Shoot, pull the trigger 20 times. Or if you're just that bad of a shot, you just dump mag after mag after mag until 50 bodies just pile up. With a knife, you have to get up and close and personal. And depending on
BTK, let him finish.
And depending on your physical strength, you might lose. And after 20 or 30 or so people, you might get a little tired.
Okay. So we ban assault rifles. All right. We can hypotheticalize that. We ban assault rifles. Have you ever heard of a New York reload?
Oh yeah. You told me about this. You just pack up a whole bunch of Saturday Night Specials and just dump 6 rounds at a time. Let's see. How many 6-shot revolvers would add up to a capacity of just an AR-15 with 1 magazine?
An AR-15 with 1 magazine? That's 5.
That's 5 revolvers. And what if you want an AR-15 but with 2 magazines? That's
5 revolvers with a quick reload.
No. That's 10 revolvers, and then you get to 15. Each mag is worth 5 more revolvers. How many tons of revolvers would have been required to do the Las Vegas shooting? How many tons? Because you're going to add
the Las Vegas shooting. Well, one, you'd have to be a lot closer. Well, you wouldn't have to be. People can hit a target from about a mile away with a pistol if they know what they're doing.
No, you can't.
Yeah, they can. You go on YouTube. It's been done by many people.
Unless you're shooting a fucking 50 cal.
It's a 9mm.
You're not hitting a target from a mile away with a 9mm.
It was a 9mm. The target was a mile away. He aimed 80 feet above the target and he hit it.
How many people in the world can do that?
I can do it. Give me a pistol. I can do it.
How many people in the world can do that?
Anybody with enough training.
Can an autistic teenager that has sat in his mother's basement his entire life do that?
Yeah, probably.
He just walks out from his basement, pulls out a Glock, aims in the air, fires. He can do that.
I don't think
That's insane.
I don't think the Vegas shooter was an autistic teenager. So
the Sandy Hook shooter was. If
you're gonna go with
one at a time.
if you're gonna go with the Sandy Hook and any close quarters inside a school or inside a mall or inside a Walgreens or whatever, that's all close quarters. So the whole can you shoot
Yeah. So
somebody from a mile
why do you
away
bring
is
up?
irrelevant.
Wait, Ham, let her finish.
So why do you bring up shooting from a mile away?
Because you brought up Vegas, which was far as hell away from the hotel to where the crowd was not pistol range. Well, not effective pistol range anyway.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I was mentioning the fact that in order to do the Las Vegas shootings, he would have to bring several tons worth of, of revolvers to do, how many fucking rounds did he fire? Like 1,000?
He had like 16 rifles in that room.
Yeah, because guess what? Rifles heat up.
But back to the principle I was going with. Okay, if you ban rifles, all right, now you have to what's the next thing they're going to go to? Pistols. Pistols already kill more people than rifles. Knives already kill more people than rifles. But you want to limit it to mass shootings. So now we're down to pistols or shotguns. You can kill just as many people with a pistol as you can with a rifle. You'd have to outlaw all Berettas, all Glocks, all Sigs, most Colts, uh, Smith and Wessons. You'd have to have basically, in order for your argument to work, all guns that are not single fire and you have to reload it by taking a screwdriver and opening up the chamber to put in a new round. That'd be the only way you could prevent mass shootings.
What firearm requires a fucking screwdriver to open up the chamber and load a new round?
If you go to California or New York, there are specific laws on specific firearms. California, on some of their pistols, you have to have a the magazine. Okay, on their ARs. If you go to California, on their ARs, the magazine has to have an adapter to it in order for it to be legal. That you have to take a screwdriver to undo the magazine and put a new magazine in.
Okay.
So basically, that would have to be applied to all firearms.
Many of these countries in Europe, they have phenomenally less people getting shot to death in the streets than we do.
They also have less guns per capita, and they're more racially or culturally, however the word's pronounced, homogeneous?
Homogeneous?
Yeah, that's the one.
From what
I think that's the right word anyways.
From what I understand, Canada is fairly diverse. They have far less people getting shot than we do.
Canada doesn't have Canada's gun. You can't really have it's really hard to get a gun in Canada.
No, you can actually own the gun laws in Canada are fairly comparable to America. There's in fact you can own. There are certain guns you can own in Canada you can't own in the United States, like a short-barreled shotgun.
Right, but it's really hard to get a gun in Canada, and you can have a short-barreled shotgun in the U.S. There's one made by Mossberg that it subverts all the registration
because
requirements.
Because it has a pistol grip.
All right, if I may find a pausing point here. There's some that Common Sense guy said in the chat here, since we're on the issue of gun stats. Hey, look at London. More people dying than New York.
True. More people. There's more. They don't have very many guns in London, and people are being stabbed to death at numbers never seen before.
Well, you can attribute that to the immigration crisis that they've been having. They still have a far lower death rate than the United States. They have a far lower homicide rate than the United States.
That you can't compare a city to a country. And the people, whoever said that in chat was comparing a specific city to
yeah,
another.
it was Common Sense guy who said it.
Yeah, and I'm going to compare a specific country to a specific country.
Okay.
And you can cherry pick any city in the United States and to pick up against any cherry picked city in Europe. You can
okay.
pick
What about
cherry
just
pick
Chicago?
Wait.
And London.
What about just Chicago? Okay, Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, and the state of Illinois is one of two states that has what's called a FOID card. In order to have a firearm in the state of Illinois, you have to have a FOID card, meaning you have to pass the background checks, you have to pass the psychological evals and all that. And then
I own a FOID card. All it is is
Ham. Let BTK finish her point, then I'll give you a chance to respond. Then I'll address the chat some more. Go on, BTK.
Okay, so if you have a FOID card, then you already know that if you go into a psychological evaluation or a mental hospital, you automatically lose your FOID card. So, but yeah, so the state of Illinois, you have to have a FOID card. It's one of two states that requires you to have a FOID card. In Chicago, there are many guns that are illegal in the city of Chicago. Now, a lot of people make the argument, well, they just go to Indiana and buy the guns there, and then they're 100% legal. Well, that's not true, because when you have a FOID card, you have to register your guns with the address that you keep the guns at. And if the address that you keep the guns at is in a county that the gun is illegal, you're breaking the law.
All right, Ham, respond, then we'll go to the chat some more.
I have a FOID card, and the process to get a FOID card is pathetically easy. All you got to do, fill in your information, pay $10, and you wait a month. That's it. That's literally it.
All right. So wait, BTK. I said that I was going to address the chat here. So there are three chat comments that kind of tie in with each other. First, by the Crusader, England has a much smaller population than the U.S., so that also makes sense. Then Common Sense guy says, no, they don't if you compare size of population. And Crusader says, and further, England has 53 million people, the U.S. has 325 million people.
Which is why we use per capita, you fucking retard.
Hey, be decent to my audience here, Ham. Shut the fuck up with insults.
I can see the logic that Ham was using there. Not only is it do we go off of per capita, but that argument would also mean that the population density in England would be higher than the population density in the U.S. And if you look at most reports put out by psychologists that analyze the Harvard study and the CDC study. The CDC study being the one that stated that there are 500,000 gun crimes and between 1.5 and 3 million good guys with gun preventing crimes. If you look at the way the psychologists analyze all those, then England should have a higher crime per capita than the United States due to population density.
All right. I also got to add, Ham, if you start insulting or personally attacking one more time, I'm going to penalize you and give BTK a full 5 uninterrupted minutes of speaking on the subject. Anyway, go ahead. Hello?
Hello.
I think it's your turn, Ham.
I'm looking at the list of countries by intentional homicide. Just in total, America has 5.35 deaths per 100,000, and UK has 1.2 per 100,000. So the UK is a lot safer. You don't want to die.
Do you have stats on which country you're more likely to be stabbed in?
You're talking about violent crime? Well, let's look at violent crime. By the way, violent crime in UK considers things like pushing, so keep that in mind. Uh, violent crime country. Let's see.
I'm liking this debate so far, by the way. And also, probably give the ending statements at about 8 p.m. I don't want it to go much further than that.
Yeah, I sent you one picture, Dark. I've been spending literally ever since I sent that one trying to find the other one that goes along with it, and they're right next to each other in my folder, but I can't find it, so I'm still looking.
Yeah, let me try to see if I can okay, yeah, now I figure it out how I can upload it. Let me see if I can find it. I think this is it. Upload. And okay, yeah, there it is in the side chat.
Can't find a anything on a list of countries by violent crime. Let's go.
Yeah, countries like England and Canada are strange on that. Like Canada since 1994 or 1996, you cannot find a breakdown of crimes by race. They completely said you don't need to know that information, which is strange because the last year they did it was the worst graph or the worst list that showed that racial minorities, as we would call them in the U.S. I don't really know the racial breakdown in Canada, whether or not they're more equal in numbers, but the last breakdown that Canada had, the crime rates by what we would call minorities were so bad in comparison to what we would call white people that they completely stopped listing the ethnic class or whatever of the perpetrator. And I know the UK is weird on that too. The way that they report is not really honest.
Still trying to look through your sources, Ham?
Yeah, I'm not finding anything. I can find stats on rape, but nothing on violent crime. Oh well.
I know Common Sense guys in the UK. He might have knowledge of how to find those hidden statistics that aren't easily found on Google.
Oh God. God. I'm looking at the chat. Crusader says, especially with terrorism, guns would help solve the violence in the UK. Jesus Christ. No.
It would stop repeat offenders. I mean, if somebody pulls out a knife, starts stabbing people, and he gets shot, he's not going to stab anybody else tomorrow. It's a bit extreme. I'll give it that much, but
anything else? Because I think I've said everything I wanted to say.
I said before you blocked me, however long ago that. God damn it, that's not the right picture. That if everybody had to carry a gun that was eligible to carry a gun, gun crime would go down. And you said that was the stupidest thing you'd ever heard. And I was curious if you had any comment on that.
Yeah, because we know the opposite is true. You remove guns, you remove the thing, you remove gun crime. I mean, we can look up the homicide rate uh, of intentional homicides with a firearm. You know, United States is like around 5 per 100,000. The UK is like 0.06.
But you brought up, I believe it was Sweden, which has the highest number of people with a gun per capita, highest number of people that have guns.
That'd be
And
Switzerland.
or yeah, Switzerland. What country did I say? Sweden? Oops. They both start with an S. Anyway, and they have one of the lowest gun crime in the world. When I was in Europe, when I lived in Europe, I actually went to Switzerland, and which makes me curious as to why I said the wrong country. And there's there's the other picture. There's a national forest or a state forest or whatever they call it over there that is clothing optional restriction. All right. And when I was there, you could ride your bike through this national park, national forest, whatever, and you'd ride your bike past a 14-year-old girl completely naked on a bicycle that has two guns on her. She's not being raped. She's not taking her gun to school and shooting people. Basically the point is like everybody over there has gun, but their gun problems are nil.
Well, they have, like I said, they have a vastly different gun culture. They're very militaristic, where you know us in America we're very
Lackadaisical.
Yeah.
I sent you that other picture, Dark. I found it
All right,
finally.
I'll download.
I mean, isn't.
By the way, also FYI, I put Common Sense Guy's link regarding UK crime stats in the side chat here. Go on him.
If I remember correctly, military service is mandatory in Switzerland.
I think it should be mandatory in the U.S. too.
I'm totally against even the concept of that.
Well, okay, not necessarily military, because there are many people that are not eligible, either physically, psychologically, etc., for military. But if you go to the countries like Israel, Switzerland, Sweden, Germany, I think Germany, that do require military service by all people, if you're not eligible for military service, then you are required some other form of service in the government. A lot of people in Germany that aren't eligible, they actually wind up going to college to get a degree and get a position that is useful for the government. So basically, if you can't join the military under the requirements, then you can go to college and get a degree, and it's all paid for. Now, I mean, that's advocating for a socialist program, which I'm kind of against, but it would get more people trained on guns than what we have now, where you sit in a class for like your concealed carry on states that actually make you go to a class instead of just doing a class online. There's people that go to these concealed carry classes and completely ignore everything, pass a fucking common sense question test, and walk out with their card after paying $100.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I believe schools should teach gun safety classes, like in some sort of.
They used to.
Well,
Yeah,
bring that
I
back.
agree with you 100%. There used to be shooting clubs. You can actually, if you look for it long enough, it's kind of hard to find on Google because they don't want you to find it. But if you look for it long enough, you can. There's in the late 70s, early 80s, there were a string of people that called into their school saying that they were going to shoot their school up. and you can find the newspaper articles of the school shooting club standing around at the doors of all the schools with their school issued shooting club rifles and shotguns, saying, basically just good luck. You're not getting in. It ain't gonna happen. And there you can find all the way back to the towards the end of World War II, all the way up to the early 60s, right before Vietnam. You can go on, and if you look for them hard enough, you can find pictures of school shooting events, which were sex segregated. You had your girl shooting club, and you had your boys rifle and rod club, and there's competitions. Everybody in the school knew how to shoot. They were competent and comfortable around firearms, and it was standard. And we don't do it anymore.
Yeah, my dad used to talk about how when he was I used to go to this high school called Lee High School down in Houston. Doesn't exist anymore, but my dad used to mention how in the student parking lot there would probably be enough firepower to take out a police station. Today, today if you're caught with a box cutter on the seat of your car, you're expelled.
Well, I mean, box cutters killed several thousand people on 9/11. That's what they no, that's it. That's what they used to gain control of the pilot's cabin.
Hey, steel fuel don't melt jet beams.
You don't. Oh my God! You just hurt my head. The jet fuel does not have to melt the steel beam. All it has to do is weaken it to the point that it can no longer structurally hold the weight.
I think he was being sarcastic and funny right there, because
I do too.
Sam is not a 9/11 truther.
I do too. It's just the way he said it hurt my head.
What are you talking about? It was the Death Star that took out the Twin Towers.
Darth Vader bin Laden.
But yeah, that's one of the things that really gets me when people are like, the steel beams couldn't have been melted by the jet fuel. I'm like, my job in the military was to play with explosives. Okay, you don't need to cut or melt the steel in order to collapse the structure. All you have to do is get it hot enough that it can't hold the weight anymore.
All right, I want us to get back onto the subject. By the way,
anything new in chat?
No. I mean, not anything relevant enough to be bringing up.
Okay, and I can't see because I'm on mobile. I can't see the link that Common Sense Guy provided, so Ham would have to look at that.
Okay. I guess maybe I'll just give it to you via Twitter then.
All right, that'll work.
Twitter.
Going to the Twatters.
Yeah, Twatter.
All right, yeah, I got it.
All right, cool.
So, BTK, what if you were to have any kind of gun control? What kind of gun control would you have? Because no matter what, every individual wants some form of a gun control. I mean, even among Republicans, many of them want to ban totally assault style weapons.
I thought you were going to ask me if I could have any kind of gun I wanted. The only gun control that I would be in support of, what we pretty much already have on the books on various state levels, but I would be supportive of it being federally mandated, would be a mandatory psychological test, or the states don't really have a mandatory psychological test, but they do have in that month that you're sitting around waiting for your FOID card, they do check your psychological history. So it should be federally mandated that if you meet certain criteria put forth by the documentation from your psychologist or your I don't know, emergency room doctor because you were in there for suicide, or the police station because you were in there for spousal abuse. And that wouldn't really be police station; that'd be courts. But long story short, federally mandated. If you can't pass a psychological evaluation, whether it's you have to pass one when you apply for the firearm, or they just look at your record to see if you don't really qualify for having a firearm, that's really the only one I would support. So basically, crazies don't get guns. Everybody else can get whatever the hell they want.
I'd go a bit further. Now, mind you, all throughout this this debate, I've been kind of sort of arguing for the total banning of all guns. I'm not for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of avoid strawmanning you when you argue so much for devil's advocate on that front.
It's not really devil's advocate. It really depends on what you value more. Do you value the freedom of owning firearms, or do you value the security that you would gain from not, being around firearms? Because
if you're willing to give up your freedom for a measure of security, you deserve neither.
Whatever. But what
did you just whatever that? You're making me choke on my Dr. Pepper.
How dare you drink the same drink that I drink?
I know, right? How dare I be of the same skin color as you?
You don't know what my skin color is.
I've seen you on cam, okay? Stop it.
Fake news. Fake news. Believe me.
How dare you both be part of the LGBT community?
How dare you not have your cum sock on your mic?
I'm sorry, but this is not a pornography for you right here, Ham. Sorry to disappoint.
Oh, Ham misses your improvised pop filter. Aw, so cute.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, yeah. So, when it comes to me, I value the freedom of owning a firearm over the security of not being around firearms, because guns are fun. I have a replica of an 1887 Winchester lever action shotgun. It's a fun as fuck gun to shoot. It's weird, it's clunky, it's oddball, but it's fun, and it's a really good shooter. As long as you don't have to shoot anything. As long as you don't have to shoot more than one clay at a time, because, man, working a lever is real fucking slow compared to a pump action or a double barrel. But
see now, Ham, you said you had a FOID card?
Yeah.
So that means you're either in Illinois or what's the other one? Idaho?
Do I sound like I eat potatoes?
Those are the only two states that have a FOID card.
Actually, you would sound just a little bit Irish there, Ham.
How dare you infringe on my character?
But anyway, yeah, I mean, Ham's explained plenty of times that he is in Illinois.
See, the state of Illinois says that I am not allowed to have a firearm for another. Let's see, how long ago did they say that? So I can, for another year. You go into a VA psych ward and they say you can't have firearms. I don't know why. It's not like I was planning on hurting anybody, but Illinois is fairly good on that. Now, that aside, they said that like 3 years ago. I went shooting about 4 months ago, and at 600 meters with a 2x optics with a 308, I had a .5 MOA. So,
what rifle?
What's that?
What rifle?
It was it was my buddy's rifle because I can't have guns.
In about 5 minutes, we'll go to closing statements. By the way,
yeah, I want to finish what I was saying on my opinion on for gun control, or at least my theory. I do not believe in absolutely banning, any gun, even machine guns. What I do advocate for is a certain type of licensing procedure where most everyday guns, like manually operated rifles, like bolt action, lever actions, pump actions, revolvers,
Anything
muzzle
that's not
loaders.
semi.
Anything that wouldn't be anything that'd be better than a pump action shotgun for mass shooting, I would put in the first tier of licensing. Anything at or above a pump action shotgun for a mass shooting, I would put in the second tier of licensing.
By the way, I just want to shout out to Brandon Paget. This is to you, motherfucker.
Yeah. So yeah, the first level will be fairly, it'd be just like your standard procedure for getting a FOID card or something like that. For the the more restricted guns, AR-15s, AK-47s, assault rifles, pistols that carry a double stack magazine, pump action shotguns with more than 3 or 4 rounds. Those guns, I would put them in the second tier, and I'd have a lot more strict licensing. Maybe you have to demonstrate why you want these firearms or something. I don't know what.
Well, we already have that. But what you're advocating for is a reclassification of what firearms fall under what FFL category, and an enforcement of FFL requirements to weapons that currently do not have FFL requirements. Like, in order to get a machine gun, like a full auto machine gun right now, you have to have a FFL 3, and you have to pay your tax stamp for it, and you have to demonstrate that why you need it and where it's stored and blah 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 blah. So basically, what your advocation is in direction of is just a reclassification of your basically all non-semi-automatic low capacity firearms would be an FFL 1, and then all semi-automatic and or higher capacity firearms would be an FFL 2,
well,
which would require
some semi-automatic guns would be in the first level. I'm not afraid someone's gonna take a Colt 1911 or a M1 Garand and do a mass shooting. Number one, those guns are really unoptimized compared to a Glock 19 or an AR-15 to do a mass shooting.
All right, I want to interject here and address the chat one last time before we go to closing statements. That is a chat comment from Red Feather 1. And seeing as how Ham does not propose the banning of guns, but he's arguing devil's advocate for it, she asks, how does Ham propose getting illegal guns off the streets? Sorry if you discussed that and I missed it, and the only reason why I'm reading this is because I don't think we have. Ham, address that.
Cops doing what they're supposed to do, just steady investigation, police work, and busting people for violating law.
Yeah, it's been said by a lot of constitutionalists and other very stringent 2A advocates that the cops are more than welcome to come for their guns, but they're going to have a bad day because they have guns.
Yeah, remember that
so I guess
that confrontation that Nevada rancher had, who eventually went around to
Clive and Bundy.
Yeah, Clive and Bundy, those guys that brought a whole bunch of guns and like scared off various federal officials, even though that they were breaking the law.
Well, the federal officials are breaking the law, yeah.
Well, Clive and Bundy were breaking the law.
The federal agency that was there was shooting their livestock after they had
That's
received.
a little bit of a different subject. Let's on gun.
Okay, yeah. So I had a question on implementation of what you said there, Ham. Making how would you implement the law making guns of certain categories illegal to own and thereby confiscating them? How would you implement that without a lot of bloodshed?
Gun buyback programs. I mean, they're extremely successful in what they do. And you just and if you catch them, you arrest them.
How can you say they're extremely successful in what they do? I assume you're referencing the Australian gun buyback, and Australia has way more guns now than they did before the buyback.
What were the guns they were going after? I'm sure those guns exist in far fewer numbers than they did before.
No, they exist in higher numbers. I'm not really arguing good faith here, because if you look at the statistics and the documentaries and everything else and calculate the numbers, Australia has more guns, even of the ones that were bought back, but you have private individuals that have a collection of 200, 300 guns. So they're not as widely distributed as they were before, but there are more raw number in firearms.
Well, I mean, there's nothing we can really do about one guy just deciding to own every Luger that's ever produced.
Well, unless he wants to buy my Luger, in which case, it's mine. I mean, I don't have any firearms. Illinois, I do not have firearms.
But yeah, and one of the reasons why I want to consolidate and codify the different types of firearms in my proposal is you got things like that Remington Shockwave, where it skirts the law because it has a pistol grip, even though it is a short barrel pump action shotgun.
Well, the Shockwave doesn't per se have a pistol grip. If it had a pistol grip, it would qualify as a pistol and it would be illegal. It doesn't have a buttstock because if it had a buttstock, it would qualify as a rifle and it would be illegal.
But it skirts the law. That's the problem. And
all right.
What we really need to do is codify and simplify all the wild and weird gun laws we have around the nation, so they can be more easily enforced.
Yeah, I'm in favor of a federal standard. I don't think like things on. That's why the federal government exists. The federal government exists so that when there are issues that states can't resolve, such as standardization of gun laws, making it so you shouldn't be able to go to Indiana and buy a gun when you live in Chicago, because Chicago's gun laws don't let you have that gun, but you bought it in Indiana, so you think you're good. It should be a federally mandated set of laws. And that's what the government's there for. It's not there to infringe on the individual rights. It's there to provide standardization of rights and make sure that the states don't step on your rights. Like make it so that Maryland doesn't go, you can't have any guns, period. That's what the government's there for.
All right, Ham, I'll let you respond to that individual point right there, and then we'll go to closing statements right afterwards. Nothing relevant in the chat to address otherwise.
I got really nothing much other than just autistic nitpicking of, I really don't believe in states' rights. I don't believe in them at all. You know, states' rights. The whole reason why we have the whole issue of states' rights is, you know, states back in the 1850s wanted to be able to own slaves. Well, certain states, while other states didn't want them, you know, believe that you shouldn't be able to infringe on someone's human rights just because of a geographical location.
Yeah, I disagree with your assessment regarding state rights. But anyway, so BTK went first during this whole debate with her opening statement, and then Ham went right after that. So we'll start off with BTK's closing statement, and then Ham can have his 5 minutes of closing statement. So BTK, 5 minutes. You ready?
Sure, I'm ready.
All right, go.
All right, so closing statements. So as far as the war on drugs, I am perfectly fine with all drugs being legalized. I believe that if we legalize all drugs and regulate them so where you can only have a certain amount, that's really not going to do much. I think we should just legalize them across the board. And if you screw up and you die because you overdosed, that's on you. I don't care. As far as guns, I can agree with Ham that we should have a standardized. I was not really agreeing. I've said this before, but we should have a standardized federal investigatory process to determine the validity of whether or not a person is competent, capable, and worthy of having a gun. Worthy is only determined by them, not being competent and capable. As far as the drug war started in the 60s and 70s and perpetuated into the 80s, it's kind of irrelevant if we're both advocating for drugs to be 100% legal. As far as Ham's claims that I'm racist, I still have to disagree with that. It appears that it was a conflict of interpretation of terms, so that I'm not racist. As far as being able to, or not being able to, but as far as limiting a firearms categorization, etc., that he argued for, we already have that in the FFL program. I think that all of his ideas can be implemented into that to make it so that it's streamlined in a federal standard. And that semi-automatic weapons and high-capacity weapons would require a lengthier and more in-depth background check. I've argued for that before. So I guess closing statements is we pretty much agree on everything other than Ham's going off of the argument that guns create the crime or create the propensity or the likelihood to have more crime. And I say that the problem is in the population's mental capacity, the psychological state, and the problem. If you remove the guns, you're not treating the problem. You're just throwing a Band-Aid over it and pretending that the actual problem of psychologically damaged individuals from having split family homes and being victims of child molestation and blah 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 blah, all that's still there. Removing the guns doesn't fix or treat any of that. So I say focus less on removing guns, and I know he was just devil's advocating, but focus less on removing guns and focus more on fixing the nuclear family, providing mental help to the people that need it, ensuring the people that receive the mental help or need the mental help don't have access to the firearms, and unblock me on Twitter, damn it. And I'm done.
All right, so with 1 minute left to go, that is the end of BTK's closing statement. Cancel that out. And so, Ham, you ready to go?
Sure.
All right, 5 minutes. Go right now.
BTK, I unblocked you like 45 minutes ago, and fist me. That's it.
Right, is that literally it?
Yeah.
Well, we agreed on everything. It was just like we were coming at it from different angles and we're talking over each other.
I guess
So.
it was the effect of statistics that
I-
you two
I-
are mainly
I think the-
disagreeing on.
I think the problem with BTK is she doesn't really
All right,
communicate.
I'll put this as part of your ending statement. Go on.
I think the problem with BTK, she doesn't really communicate her ideas very well, and it's extremely easy to interpret it as racist. I mean, when you point out black crime and you stop it right there with no further analysis. I mean, that's a talking point common among alt-righters. So, it's really on you to clarify and explain your point when you're when you're going on a touchy subject like race and crime. I think that's it.
Hey, Dark, can I buy back my minute for just one quick readdress?
Shit.
Do
Actually,
it, faggot.
no. You can tweet it to him on Twitter or something.
Do it. Let her do it.
For what? You want her to address that?
Do it.
All right. BTK, go.
All right. So in England, there was a guy that tweeted out during a Muslim march that it was a good thing that there were, or that he something to the effect of he wished that there were trucks. All right, and a bunch of people, including the police and everybody else, the news, said that he was being Islamophobic and racist and blah 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 blah. And he legitimately and he was able to get out. Like they charged him with a bunch of stuff, and all the charges were dropped because he was able to show in court through his lawyer that he wasn't talking about trucks, being packed with explosives and blowing people up or running over people. He was legitimately talking about food trucks. He legitimately wanted there to be a food truck. So if I say something
10 seconds.
and you view it as racist, maybe you should evaluate whether or not the racist viewpoint is coming from you or if it was really implied by me.
Done. All right. So, I guess we'll end it right there. And Brandon wants you two to read the chat. I will let you read the chat in post of this stream, or you can do it while we're off air. But anyway,
because Brandon said it, I will not read the chat.
But anyway, that was the epic gun debate, the epic gun, drug wars, and race debate between the base trap Kayla and the cult of the Forbidden Word.
I am both offended and aroused.
Anyway, that is going to be all for this stream, you guys. I'll probably do some more. Invite me to the hangout stack. No, Brandon, I need to get off of this. But anyway, so that's all that I have to say. That's all that these two have to say. I'll probably do more of these moderated debates. So I would love to do more of these moderated debates, between Lapis and some other right winger, or Ham and some far leftist, somebody further left than even Ham.
I am not talking to Owen McDonald.
How about you versus Lapis then? But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a very, very fun and good debate. And no, we are not all fags, just BTK and Ham, Brandon.
Hey,
anyway,
you're only gay if you do gay shit, and I don't do gay shit. So
anyway, I am the Dark Conservatarian. This has been a Strike Force debate, BTK versus Ham. See y'all later. And as always, God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Bag.